this dance with death, this really heavy, dark energy that can consume us to the point where people have taken their lives. And you're going to share a really powerful story about your journey. It's one of those things that I think everybody has toyed with the idea in some way, shape, or form in their lives.
Sure.
And some people are gripped by this dance with death, I call it, to such an extent that it becomes paralyzing.
Yeah.
It keeps you in this broken, helpless pain state. It's the opposite of that life force vitality that we need to truly live and embody this life fully, you know.
For sure.
It's almost as if when we are in that state, or when we contemplate that, we are hovering outside of our bodies, almost ready to just exit. And, you know, for all the reasons and for all the motivations that people have for wanting to commit suicide, for even thinking about death, at its core, it's unbearable pain and trauma and the inability to deal with it, the inability to face our fears when it comes to going through that pain. There's something that we are running from as well. And for a lot of people who contemplate suicide, they're unaware of what the process is. You know, you learn that sometimes in hindsight. But I'd love for you to share your story about just what that energy and that felt like for you at that moment.
Sure.
You know, when you really decided, I'm doing this.
Yeah, it was so totally bizarre the way it all happened. I mean, I know now that it had to happen that way. There was no other way for me to get out of where I was. And through all the clients and all the people I help and all the people that I see that I talk to about this, I mean, obviously, the first thing I tell them is, don't do what I did. You know what I mean? Like, find a different way. Find a different way. Just because that's how it happened for me, please, that's not how it could happen for anyone else. It was, the way I tried to kill myself was quite horrific. I jumped off a bridge over a highway with jumper cables tied around my neck. The jumper cable snapped and I fell, it's about 6 or 7 meters, and splattered onto the highway. That was part of my plan, is that if, you know, the drugs didn't kill me that night, the hanging would, if that somehow failed, the fall would kill me. And if that somehow failed, a truck or a car or something would hit me. And none of that happened. It was, like I said, just so totally bizarre how everything just happened that night. The emptiness that I felt, there was no emotion at the time. There was no feeling. I had made the decision and I was done. So it was, I mean, you know, every time I talk about this, I have that flash, that one moment before I let go from the railing of the bridge. And that was the last thing that I clearly remember until waking up 3 days later in hospital. My body was severely broken. My spine was broken in 4 places, my pelvis in 3 places. My leg was broken, my arm was broken, collarbone, ribs, my wrists, all those bones in there and stuff. And when the doctors found out what had happened, I spent a total of, I think it was about 8 weeks in 2 different hospitals. I spent 5 weeks in Mill Park Hospital and then 3 weeks in the rehabilitation hospital in Auckland Park. I had to learn how to walk again, had to learn how to use my arm again. And it was only when I got to the rehabilitation hospital that the doctors found out the true reason and the actual event of what had happened. And that's when everything started changing for me. That's when everything started changing. I started noticing how people were looking at me. It was different. It went straight from, oh, poor guy, you've been in an accident, to, oh, well, you did this to yourself. And
that's interesting.
It was very interesting. It was really, really interesting.
So that speaks to the judgment around suicide, right?
Absolutely.
And our society's understanding of why it is that people make these decisions. You're put in that mentally ill or inferior box, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Until the day this beautiful angel of a woman, the first psychologist that I ever had, that I was ever able to truly open up to, Catherine Jenks. And she was instrumental in my healing process.
Powerful. An angel.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's a thing with Catherine's with a K at the moment, because Catherine Jenks was she was my psychologist.
That's beautiful.
And I mean, she helped me so much that my daughter's second name is Catherine. I asked if I could name her after her. And when my second calling came, every search that I did, Catherine Lee Kruger, who is my teacher now, you interviewed her a little while ago.
And other people call me Catherine.
Okay.
So it's quite funny.
It's all over. So, but
synchronicity is powerful.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It's coming back to the hindsight thing. You know, I look back now and I know exactly why it had to happen. I know it happened exactly the way that it needed to happen in order for me to be reborn into my new role, into my new me. To finally be able, after 26 years of addiction, to let that go and put that aside. People often ask me, you know, they say, how can you talk about it like the way you do now? And it's because I've done the work that I've done to get over it, to understand it, to understand myself, to understand my life, my path, my journey. And here I am.
It's a powerful story.
Thank you.
And it's a miracle that you are sitting here. So, you know, there's so many layers to your transformation and your healing journey that are cosmic, divine, and just so important for other people to learn from. That, you know, you could choose to have a death and a rebirth in this life that doesn't have to be as painful as the one that you have chosen. Like you rightly said, there are other ways to achieve the spiritual transformation without hurting yourself, you know, and making it so much more traumatic. But for you, certainly, the journey was needed, you know.
Absolutely.
I think the takeaway is so profound, because for anybody who is contemplating this, that's not always the net result.
Yes.
You were a blessed, guided, clearly, you know, supported from the divine.
Somebody out there was looking out
for you.
Absolutely.
Precisely.
There's no doubt in my mind about it.
And you had a different purpose.
Yeah.
I think we spoke about this earlier, the decision that one makes when one's toying with this idea of death. Because we feel unsupported, unloved, we don't have perhaps the skill set, or we're drowning in our victim consciousness so much so that the world is against us and I'm completely alone, that you see absolutely no other options because your perspective is so narrow in that moment.
Yes.
And your vibration is so low in that moment when you make this choice or contemplate this decision, that you know, vibrationally you do actually dance with the edge. You toy with the edge of that life force energy, and you get a taste. Certainly for me, when I contemplated it, I could literally touch, sense, and taste what death would feel like. And it was almost drawing me in as a, you know, almost like a kind of a comfort. It was comforting in a way that was anything but this place, anything but this pain. And to the angels who come to us, you know, in physical form or in spirit form, to shift our perspective in that moment and show you the light, is the difference between life and death, literally, in that moment.
Very literally, yes.
I think for anybody who's ever experienced it or is contemplating it, it's so important to know that that is not the full reality of your existence. In that moment, you are going through an energy or a feeling that is temporary and limited to that moment. Correct. It doesn't encompass all of your being, all of your life, all of your emotions, and all of your range of experiences. 100%. But in that moment, you are unable to see yourself clearly.
No, you can't.
This world clearly.
That darkness is all
It's blinding.
consuming. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think allow yourself the moment, the time to breathe through it, to hold space for that energy,
Yeah.
without that energy consuming you to the point where it's dictating
Yes.
your actions.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's such a powerful testimony to our attachment to emotions.
Yeah.
And that ego attachment that we have to our feelings, where I am my anger, I am my sadness,
Yes. We think we are
I
our thoughts and
am
emotions.
my rage, you know, I am this grief, I am it, you know, you embody it so completely that it becomes you, instead of remembering that you are a spiritual being who can choose a different reality.
Yes.
And that you can witness this emotion. Actually, you can distance yourself from it. And it does not identify you, you know? That for me was my saving moment,
Yeah.
where I was able to just, my higher self was so small in that moment. But she was there somewhere in a tiny little voice just saying, this is not real.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is an illusion. I could sense that.
You can absolutely give yourself permission to let those emotions and those thoughts go. You know, not many people realize they haven't learnt, not through teachings of another, but through their own experience,
Yes,
that you are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions.
exactly.
You give all the power to those things by holding on to them and letting them consume you.
Exactly.
And it is, if I could just, anybody that is going through that and is in that moment, standing on that bridge with the cable ready to go, just give them that one little pearl of wisdom. It would, I know for me, it would have made a big difference.
Exactly.
I would have climbed back over that railing. But it's you know, we are not taught these things. We, you know, through I mean, not through the school, or through schools and stuff like that, but you know, through society, through TV, through magazines, through our phones these days, that, you know, there's always these images that are painted around that you've got to be a certain way, you have to act a certain way, you have to speak a certain way, you've got to look a certain way. But there's no authenticity in that. There's absolutely no authenticity in that.
There isn't.
And that, for me, if I can pinpoint a thing was missing from my life, was being me authentically. And that is where the disconnect came from. And that disconnect, that gap just grew bigger and bigger and bigger over the years, because I was trying to be this person that I'm not.
I resonate completely with what you are saying.
Yeah.
There's so much research that has been done around, you know, this dance with death and consciousness and your relationship with all that exists and life, and a true, almost dystopian reality of understanding how the world can be such an evil, cruel, sick, broken, narcissistic place.
Yeah. If we
That
choose
it's
to
just
see it
if we choose to see it that way. And yes, there is darkness and there is light in this realm, and they coexist here.
Yeah.
So to come to terms with that reality is important, to give you that courage to go on and accept the reality of this insane, beautiful and painful world. To be able to hold space for both emotions, actually, and not get consumed by either, you know, is the key to really having that peace and stillness and leading your life from your higher self, instead of your emotions and lower energies leading you into the darkness. So for me, you know, it's naive to think that people who make this choice, even when it is carried to fruition, are, you know, ignorant or you know, again, making a an uneducated decision. It's really not that simple.
It's not a decision that happens like that.
No.
That is something that I love the way you phrased it by saying dancing with death. That is something that's a dance that goes on for some time. In what I've learned over the years, you know, again, and I always speak entirely from my own personal experience, that even in my family, God bless them, all of them, after my jump, nobody spoke about it. It's not allowed to be spoken about. It's not allowed to be, and that for me was hard. You know, that was really hard. Because those are the people that I needed to speak to this about the most. But as with everything, it was always just
taboo.
Everything's okay, leave it, like sort of don't talk about it, you know. But I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't say that for out of any negative energy towards my family. I mean, they love me dearly, you know, like it's just we fear what we don't understand. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
It is about a fear of what we don't know.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't know what happens to the soul when we die and where we go and how your soul is continuing its journey and its mission in this afterlife, in another realm.
Yes.
Us not being able to hold space for really charged, intense emotions like fear, and especially for men who are not given and have for centuries not been given the space to feel fear, to feel rage, to feel vulnerability, grief, sadness. That repressed energy often manifests itself too in suicidal thoughts.
Yep, absolutely.
Because I don't live in a world where I can be real and authentic, feel these emotions and express them in a way that will be safe and supported and held.
Yeah, that's it. Because we feel that, you know, as soon as we do try that, we are ridiculed. And there's a whole lot of other stuff and baggage that comes with that. So we think, no, okay, fit back in line. And that's sad. I mean, how many gifts are out there that are waiting to be given to this world by people who are too afraid to open their mouths? I learned something quite profound quite some time ago, and this is thanks to one of my many teachers. And they said to me, somebody out there is praying for what you have to give. How much longer are you going to keep them waiting? And how many people are out there in the world today with these beautiful, beautiful gifts that are afraid of showing them, afraid of stepping into their power and stepping into the light to use these gifts to help humanity. And they just get lost in the system, so to speak, quite figuratively and literally, you know. So, yeah.
These are powerful, powerful life lessons that all of us can truly learn from. The message is still as relevant whether you are contemplating suicide or not, or whether you are just living with depression.
Yeah, sure.
Because depression is what underlies, obviously, and motivates, I think, that ultimate action.
Yeah.
In hindsight, when you have looked at your choices and you understand that you are coming right back into this life, whether you opt to leave or you're making it more challenging in this life when you continue this journey, as you have in your case, to now suffer through the healing and rehabilitation and so on.
I like the way you said that, to suffer through it.
The choice to suffer through that, you are just making it so much more difficult to get to that light that your soul so desires. You are creating, blocks and challenges to that by making decisions that harm you. And yet, I still hold space for the beauty of your soul, your sovereign choice to choose the harder path. Also, because that is too also a way of learning. But I think to know that we have choice in the matter.
Yes.
We always have choice in the matter.
One of the most profound things that I can teach anybody is that you always have a choice. Always. Either one of your choices is going to come with consequences, it's going to come with repercussions, it's going to come with blessings as well, and not just the dark side, but the light side as well. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you have a choice. You can choose to stay in the darkness or you can choose to step into the light.
And working through those feelings, working through that sadness, that pain, understanding that it does not define you, really trying to heal through that grief, whatever energy it is that you are trying to run so far from.
Yeah.
By facing it, breathing through it, integrating that into your life as an aspect of yourself that you don't need to hide anymore.
Yeah.
Being authentic to yourself first, you know,
Correct.
honoring
Correct.
truly all aspects of the self, is such a gift, because if you will allow this medicine to teach you, this medicine of this death energy and this dancing with the death, it can truly transform you in such a major way that it will be the vessel that leads you to the light, literally.
Yes. I'm walking,
Living proof of that.
living, breathing proof of that. Yes.
And so people shouldn't shy away from the lesson and the teaching, even in this energy of death. There is so much to learn.
Absolutely.